Hi there, welcome back to Creatively Crafted Life. My name is Melanie. It's time for Craft with 5, a collaboration hosted by Beth over at Bourbon Creek Craft. It is a collaboration, which means there's a hashtag below. Be sure to check that out for everybody else after you watch this video, of course. The purpose of this video is to have a predetermined list of 5 items that we need to incorporate into a project. This month's challenge focuses on a tool, an embellishment, 2 colors, and a theme. At least that's how I'm defining it. So just looking at what I have pulled out, I bet you can guess what the 2 colors are, right? So it's going to be green and pink. And you're probably wondering what the yellow is. And the yellow I just threw in because why not? These happen to be sequins from the Spellbinders Advent Calendar from 2024. And I thought they all went together really well. And once you know the theme, which is flowers, it just makes sense, right? So why not have those available while we're playing around? I did mention the theme, which is flowers. We need to include some sort of flowers. So I double tagged this by adding the flowers along with the stamp set. So that was the tool that we needed to use, was some sort of stamp. So I've got a couple stamps from Hero Arts, one from Concord and Night, Paper Tray Ink, and I believe this is a Wendy Vecchi stamp from Ranger. And none of these have been used. So a double challenge, right? To see how, if I can use at least one set of these, if not more. Obviously, I'm going to do one, but you know what I mean. So that is that. I've got the colors. I've got, oh, and of course, in the last item was the embellishment, which is sequins. So I think I've got everything covered. Who knows what else I'll pull in from my stash as we play along. And I encourage all of you to play along as well. So what is it that we're going to be making today? We are going to do an iteration of this card. And this is featuring that Hero Arts tulip set. And you can see that I use the colors, the flower image, and I use the sequins as a border. So how did we make this? Let me break this down into steps. We'll start with the stamping first. Okay, so the first thing we're doing is stamping the image. I think I need to re-ink this stamp pad because it is not very juicy anymore. So I am going to double stamp it just to give myself some nice crisp lines. Okay, and then we are going to pull this stamp off and add the layer to color it in. So I am taking inspiration from the sequins, and you can see how they've got like a yellowy, I don't know, orangey kind of iridescent quality to them. This is one of the inks from Simon Says Stamp that was on from their hybrid line, and it's called Twirling Tutu. It's kind of like a yellowy pink. Don't go by this color. At least my version is not that color. It's like almost a peachy color. So I don't know if it got distorted over time or what the deal is, but it don't look the same, but it works for this case. So this particular stamp leaves a little bit of a halo in the center. I'm not sure if I love that or not, but it is what it is. And I'm only going to stamp this once because I quite like that coloring. But we are going to layer some other colors on top to kind of make it a little more pink. So I'm going to take also from Simon Says Stamp this hybrid called Hollyhock. I'm just going to add a little bit of this pink around the outside of the petals. So really, if you're looking at the image here, I'm trying to leave this petal mostly this color, just around the edge. Maybe take some of it off. And I'm using the blending brush to just kind of blend it a little bit. Get rid of any harsh lines. Okay, I'm not really happy with that color. So that, I don't know if you can see, that gave only the lightest pink. So I'm still not quite happy with it. I want it to be a little bit more pink. So I'm going to take Lawn Fawn Plastic Flamingo, which is a pretty intense pink. And we are just going to, again, go around the edges of this. And I do want it to be quite a bit darker. And then we'll just kind of take this brush to kind of model it out. Give it a little bit of a spray to hopefully diffuse it. Maybe I'll regret that. Much better. Much better. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that. Much better. I do want a little bit more coverage down here on the bottom, so I think I'm just going to take more of that ink and just add a little bit down here. Let's see if that does the trick. Yeah, that works. Okay. Now I am not loving this white in there, so I think what I want to do is I want to just take this brush, which probably has too much ink on it, and I'm just going to kind of tap over it to kind of lessen it a little bit. Okay, that's a little better. On the original card that I showed you, I used this My Favorite Things ink in Dill Pickle, but I think I want to play off of these sequins this time, so I'm going to use My Favorite Things in Spearmint. And I'm not going to do anything fancy with this. I'm just going to literally stamp it as is. I think there's texture inherently built into the stamp, so it kind of gives a mottled look to start off with, and I'm happy with that. See what I mean? Like it bleeds a little bit. Kind of got like an inky overall look. Okay, so I'm going to do the same with the leaf. Just add some green, and again, like I said, I think the stamp already has some modeling in it, so I don't need to do anything fancy to give it that kind of painterly look. So this is the image the way it stands now. We're going to trim this out. It didn't come with a die, so I'm just going to hand cut this out and we'll be right back. Actually, I thought I would talk about this for those of you that do not like fussy cutting. Maybe a couple ideas as to what could help. I find that when I fussy cut, if I get rid of as much of the bulk as possible at first, it just makes it easier for my stamp to go in and trim out. So I don't know if you've ever tried this or not, but if you don't like fussy cutting and you find yourself in that situation where you do, you might want to give this a try, or you can use things like your brother's Canon cut or whatever and get around not having dies. Now, I've already trimmed out, like I said, most of that. There's a few other tips when you are cutting. One is that you want to try and never do harsh angles. If you ever look at a die cut from like a machine die cut, it always is rounded, and it just looks, I don't know, it just looks a little less harsh. Now see, I came up to this point and it still feels like I've got too much bulk in here to actually access it, so I'm just going to trim a little more bulk out before I go in further. So yeah, so you always want to do rounded, like you don't want to have any of these like sharp points if you can avoid them. It just looks neater if you can avoid them. So the key to some of that too is to give yourself a little bit of extra space. Like it's not necessary to go all the way down to the bottom of here. I don't know if you can see that. So it's not necessary to go all the way down. It's better if you go up a little bit more and do it rounded. At least that's my opinion. I mean, you do you, right? But if you are interested, that's what I think makes an overall better looking fussy cut image. The other thing you want to do is you want to avoid going all the way to the end of your scissors. So you don't ever want to just like go like that, because that leaves like funky little ends. So you always want to cut towards the back and just kind of let the scissors do the work. And then when you get partway halfway through, move your scissors and adjust. The other thing you'll notice is that I actually don't move my scissors. I move the paper, and that gives you much better control than if you were to say move your scissors. Okay, so the only time I'm moving my scissors is to readjust, to give it more room for the blade to do its job. And then just take your time. Let's see, I don't like that. That little bit there is too sharp. So I will go back in and I will just kind of round it off. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I think those are a couple things that really were game changers for me when it came to fussy cutting. So here too, I don't want to just snip it off. I'm going to try and round it around this end. So just like that. And then you obviously want to try and have a somewhat even border around, but don't get too caught up on that, because I've seen die cuts that are done by machine and they aren't always perfect either. So yeah, give yourself some grace. Okay, let's move on to the next step. For the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the card base and I'm just going to apply some 1/4 inch score tape or double sticky tape all the way around the edge. You'll notice I've pulled up the relief paper and I've extended beyond because I want to make sure the corners are completely covered. And then I'm just going to come in and trim those off here so that they are nice and neat. And then that way I won't have any, like, hopefully I won't have any awkward, you know, white spot poking through. Okay, now we're going to pull out the sequins. Now for this particular one, I'm going to use green like I said before, and there are different sizes in here. I'm going to try and focus on the larger just because I really liked how that looked with the first card, and it goes faster, which is always a benefit, right? And I am going to use a pick it up tool. I have one from Pink Fresh. It's not much of a nib left on here. I should see if I can use like a pencil sharpener or something to sharpen it. But anyways, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel off one of these stickers. And I mean, you could do them all, I guess. I just don't want to have any extra sticky sticking out, right? And all we're going to do now is we're just going to take those larger sequins and we're just going to add them on top of the double-sided tape. And in this case, because of the size of sequins that I'm using, the 1/4 inch tape is actually works quite well. So you can see it pretty much covers. Now you're going to ask, and I know mine's already going a mile a minute, and you're wondering, what about the extra glue or sticky adhesive around the sequins? We're going to cover that later. But for now, we're just going to go all the way down and all the way around, adding the sequins in. Don't worry if they're not exactly perfect, but up next against each other. Do your best, but that's no worries. Okay, so I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to do that, and then I'll come back and show you the next step. Okay, so here's how this is looking. You'll notice, see, it's not perfect. And there's some gaps and stuff. It doesn't matter, you guys. It really just doesn't matter. I did go over it, just, you know, making sure they were all really pressed down. And now we're going to move on to our panel for the front. So we're not finished with this, but we're going to do the final step to deal with that adhesive separately. So I'm just going to take this 5 1/4 by 5 1/2 panel, and I am going to trim it down to about 4 and 5 1/4, and I'm eyeballing it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try laying this over top just to see if I like the fit. And I may end up trimming a little more down, I think. I'm going to get a little more off of the side. Let's see, do I like that? Yeah, I like that. See, and you really just kind of masks any gaps that you may have had. You don't even notice them. Okay, so we have to do a couple things to this panel. One of them is to apply adhesive. Again, I'm going to use this 1/4 tape on all 4 edges right up against the edge. So let me do that and I will be right back. Okay, so I have adhesive on all 4 sides. That is going to be the front, okay, not the back. And I'm using scraps. But anyways, this is a squirrel moment. You want the adhesive on the front, and we're going to put it back in our stamp positioner because we need to stamp our greeting. So we're just going to adhere that in the bottom corner. We're going to take our focal image and kind of center it where we want. And then we're going to take our sentiment and find a position for that. I am going to do it in the bottom right corner. And I think I like it right about there, kind of nestled into the leaf. This kind of bows out, so that kind of balances it out, I think. Maybe tuck it in a little bit more, and we'll pull this off. And I don't think that's very straight. Oh, not too bad. And I'm going to use for this VersaFine just because I find that is the nicest ink for sentiments, but it does take a few extra seconds to dry, so just be careful. Now I'm choosing Hi There this time. The first one I did was Love You, because I think that's going to be my Mother's Day card. I'm already thinking that far in advance. There you go. But this next card would make a great card just to send to a friend. Because I don't trust any ink, I'm just going to take a powder tool and I'm just going to dab that on top just to make sure it is dry while we do the next step, which is where the glitter comes in. Now, I know some of you guys are not glitter fanatics, and in which case you probably don't want to do this part of the card. You probably should have left that off, but if you have foil instead, use foil, or if you've got embossing powder, use embossing powder. Don't know how well that will work with this part, which will be part 2, but you know, maybe just a little bit of glitter. Okay, so I'm just going to peel off the tape that'll form the glitter border. You know where we're going, right? And I've got a piece of printer paper to capture the glitter, so I'm going to be pretty generous. This is Stampendous Micro Glitter in green, so it's a very, very, very fine glitter. And I will be sparkling after this. And I almost used the whole jar. Now, what I do find with the micro glitter is I like to kind of burnish it in. And I just rub my fingers over top of it just to kind of really press it in to the adhesive. Probably should have put that powder on the whole card. I'm going to take a fluffy brush. This is just a e.l.f. brush for makeup. I just use it to clean up my glitter. Now this is where you're going to find out if you did a good job taping. And I didn't do too bad, but I missed a spot down here. See, there's a little tiny sliver of white, and that's fine. We'll just trim that off rather than fuss with it. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I'm going to just put this glitter back in the jar. So we're just going to put most of this back in the jar. Now we're going to take our card base that has all the sequins, and we are just going to use that to clean up the adhesive that's still sticking out around the sequins. This is going to be a little bit harder to burnish because you can't really access the adhesive with the sequins in place, but that's fine. We'll make it work. Take a fluffy brush again. Now I chose to use a glitter that I thought coordinated well with the sequins. You could always use like a clear. That would probably be all right as well. You probably would get more definition around your sequins with a clear glitter, but I opted to go tone on tone. Okay, and I probably could have gone a little closer to the edge. That I can't fix unless I take like a green marker or something to tidy that up. Okay, so now that I've created a massive glitter mess, let me go put this away and I will be back and we'll put the finishing touches on the card. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do to touch up. I actually decided to try it out on this piece first. If it doesn't look good, then we will trim this off, but I think this will work. I'm just going to go along the edge of the card, and I think that masks it pretty good. And I'm just using one of my alcohol ink markers with a coordinating color. Oh, I see it's transferring some glitter. So do this at your own risk, you guys. Don't know what it's going to do to your nib. Okay, and then we'll just take this one and we'll just do the same. Okay, now the rest of the card is very simple. We are going to add some foam adhesive to the back of the panel. Some really junky foam adhesive. Not sure where I got it, but it's not so sticky anymore. So what I'm trying to do is just use it up. Normally I would use my foam tape because it's fast and easy, but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to use up stuff in your stash, right? Put that along the back, and I'm also going to put some on the back of the flower while we're at it. Take the backings off. A lot of times the backings have already fallen off on these, and then the top part is no longer sticky, so we're just going to add a little bit of liquid glue on top just to make sure it sticks to the card. Don't use foam squares much anymore. I usually use the adhesive rolls. I just find it easier overall. I was going to say we're just going to add a dot of adhesive to all of the squares. And then our panel, make sure we got it going the right way. We're just going to center. Add a block for some pressure for a minute. And then this one, we will try and get it placed where we had originally intended it to go. Now I am going to keep this card super simple at this point because there's already a lot of glitter and sparkle and embellishment along the framing of it that I really don't think it needs anything more. So these are the two cards, the pink and the green version. I think they turned out super cute. Yeah, pretty happy with those. Okay, so that is going to be it for today's card. It was a lot of fun to try and come up with a different way to use sequins. That's what I focused on as kind of my jumping off point. And I hope you're inspired to try something. It's not as daunting as it looks. You can get past the glitter. It'll be okay. Be sure to check out the other collaborators. And if you are a member of my Facebook group and you do play along, please be sure to post a photo over there because I'd love to see what you came up with. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy crafting.